Our first speaker has been carrying the torch for us all for a long time now. Since 1993, Doreen Lawrence hasn't stopped. She's been fighting for justice for her son Stephen. Fighting for justice for all of us, and anyone who has followed the case and struggles of Doreen to find justice for her son will know that she's fought the establishment and the powers that be all the way. Nothing has been given. Everything has been fought for, and to be honest, we still face unfinished business around the murder of Stephen Lawrence. So I would like you to please give a welcome to Doreen Lawrence.
Thank you all. I always find these occasions really overwhelming. 19 years ago my son was murdered, and this year, on the 4th of January, we received justice. Partial justice for Stephen. I spent from the 14th of November of last year into January of this year having to sit and listen to people talking about what happened to my son on that night. And finally, to see 2 out of the 5 sit in the dock responsible for Stephen's murder. It's been really difficult, the months leading up to that. But for me, sitting there, having the press on one side, the defence on the other, and me in the middle, it's like going back 19 years when the same thing happened when Stephen was killed. We had the press, who at times wasn't very supportive, the justice system on the other side, who we was fighting and struggling against to get some sort of justice, just for people to listen to what happened to Stephen. But this year, we can say we've had partial justice, where 2 out of the 5, which is Gary Dobson and David Norris. Now I should say around Gary Dobson, through the inquiry in 1998-99, where the double jeopardy law was changed after the inquiry, if it wasn't for that, Gary Dobson would still be walking. Because back in 1996, when the judge instructed the jury to bring a not guilty verdict against the 3 that we had in the dock, Gary Dobson would have continued to walk free, and he was one of those responsible. The evidence and forensic proof that he was there on the night, even though for how many years he has denied that he was there on the night. So the forensic proof he was there, and having the double jeopardy law change, it allowed us to recharge him, and now he's behind bars. The inquiry brought about a lot of changes, and which was a 70 recommendation. We believe from that point on that we would see many changes taking place. Up until now, I believe it's only a few out of the 70 recommendations that's been implemented. Around education, that's still outstanding. The stop and search, and so they've changed that from stop and search to stop and account. Our young people still being stopped on the street and still being harassed on the street, and that hasn't changed. We've had the Race Relations Amendment Act also, and I feel that still is outstanding, even though we've had the Act. To me, I think not many changes has taken place around that. But one of the main things for me that came out of Stephen's death is having a Stephen Lawrence Charitable Trust, where we have a legacy in his name, a legacy where we can help and support other young people like Stephen who had a future. We need to, at some point, to support our young people. I think there's so many things against them these days. If you look at what the government's been doing recently, Every step of the way, our young people's been knocked back. We need to do something in order to change that. And I feel the Stephen Lawrence Charitable Trust is making a difference. I talk about the legacy. The legacy is not only just of what the law has changed, but the legacy is where I can stand here today and say, I've stood up to the justice system, and we too, how many people in this audience can do the same? It has taken me so long in order to, to have a voice. And my voice has sometimes been in the wilderness. It is at times like this, having so many people here supporting and saying that we want to change. And then we have the latest. I think if you look at Stephen's death, from 1993 till now, every year there's a catalogue of things that we have to address. And the latest thing that is the corruption. Now, we talked about corruption at the time when Stephen was killed. As I say, within the black community, our voice is out in the wilderness. Nobody listens to us. Now, after Stephen, after the judgment in January, I thought, right, we've got somewhere, and we can sort of use as a stepping stone to move on further. But here we are again, talking about police corruption. How many times are we going to talk about police corruption? Who is it now is going to make a difference? Now, when Stephen was killed, we talk about that how police was not taking any notice of what happened. They were not following up the suspect. They were not listening to us. We were told that is the problem between the family and the liaison officers. They came to our house, and all they wanted to know is who was in our house. The things we're saying, the people in our house are our family and our friends. They're not the murderers of Stephen. They're out there, go and find them. Now, as we move forward, as I say, the corruption raised its head again. During the inquiry, Michael Mansfield tried his very best to bring it to McPherson and his advisors. And now I hear that during that time, the police had evidence that they could have put to the inquiry, and they didn't. So, as I say, corruption raised its head again. Now, we wrote a letter to Theresa May asking to put together the inquiry so that we can understand what happened around Stephen's death and the corruption that took place. I had a meeting with her last week, but we're still waiting for what her decision is going to be. So here we are today asking all of us, all of you here, is that we need to make sure that an inquiry takes place. We need to understand what happened in 1993, why it took us 19 years in order for us to get any justice for Stephen. 19 years. No family should be put through that. Why should we have to do that? We should not having to do the work of the police. As a family, we should not having to do that. And here we are again, challenging the system. I remember one of my discussions when I was speaking with the Home Secretary is, in 1993 we had a Conservative government in power. They did not want to know what happened to my son. They were not interested, the justice system was not interested. Here we are again in 2012. It may be a coalition, but it's the Conservative who's leading. And we're in a position again around the police. What are they going to do about it? They need to step up and stop making family like myself and to go through. I've been to speak out in public about the injustice that we have to suffer over the years. Right? And as individuals here, I want you all to step up as well, to say to the Home Secretary, we need to have an inquiry. We need to know what happened. So that is my plea to you here this evening, is to how do we move forward in order to make sure that this doesn't continue and that other families are still suffering injustice. Thank you.
Janet Alder is an incredible person for pushing the struggle forward for justice for her brother Christopher. And again, it isn't over. Janet Alder.
One would like like to think, after seeing what happened to Stephen Lawrence, and the Macpherson's report coming out, that things in this country have changed. But that is not true. I think most people here saw the appalling death of my brother, an ex-paratrooper, on a custody suite floor of Hull Queen's Gardens police station with his trousers to his knees, gasping for his life. I thought it was going to be clear cut. I thought this is up the road to justice. Until I met up with the organisations. The Crown prosecution spent 4 years cancelling any evidence out to incriminate the 5 police officers that murdered my brother. We went to an inquest where 9 ordinary men and women like you saw what I saw, listened to what I listened to, and they came up with the same verdict as I did. Christopher was unlawfully killed. I honestly then thought this was going to be it. There was evidence of him making monkey and chimpanzee noises, mocking him while he's dead on the floor. We managed to get 5 police officers in court with the reluctance of the CPS. We actually went outside of this country to get experts to come to the same conclusion as what we did. Because in this kind of thing, experts all cling together. Because one's too frightened to step on the other's toes. One's too frightened to be ostracised, rather than tell the truth about what's gone on. Time and time again, you've got police stations full of people who the public are paying a good living to look after us as ordinary people. There's over 3,000 people been killed by the police since 1969. Shot, beaten. We're not speaking about people just accidentally dying in a police station. People with mental illnesses been walking the streets for years without any problem, but as soon as they come into contact with the police, they're dead on the floor. Now we expect the people that are there to protect us to do what's right. When we got to the trial of these 5 police officers, the CPS did the job of the defence. They eradicated any evidence that pointed to the police wrongdoing. The defence used that to defend themselves. You've got an orange here. The CPS's job is to prove this is an orange. They collected evidence to say it was an apple. They put it together and the judge said, "What are you doing? You aren't making a clear case. Are you trying to say it's an orange or an apple? Throw this out." The murderers walked out of the court. We had the PCA at that time, the people that's supposed to be investigating the police. It was full of ex-police officers. There's a law in this land that says that police officers are immune from prosecution. You've got the investigating forces that are investigating the force that's responsible. They're the ones that are making the decisions to whether this other force is going to be prosecuted. And we as the ordinary people are walking about really believing that these people are going to do what's right. I had to take the Crown prosecution to court. I couldn't find a solicitor or a barrister that would prosecute the prosecutors of the land. So I did it myself. if this had been me and you, as ordinary people, that is the first question they would have been asking us. I asked them why the police officers' clothing had been dry cleaned and returned. They said, well, we can't go into things like that. Why were they at the hospital the next day? Well, that's private, confidential. We can't go into their medical records. But if it had been me and you, they were quick enough to get all the details from when I was in care, all the medical records, to try and use against me in a civil case that I was taking against them. But when it comes to 5 police officers murdering my brother, it was private and confidential. I asked them why the van was cleaned. Well, we don't know. I asked them why they burnt my brother's clothes. Well, we don't know. I asked them why one of the police officers had 2 CS gas canisters. One was sent away for destruction. I'd harped on about it for 4 years. They went to Bradford 4 years later, to the place where they get destroyed, brought it back, and they told me it was full. Well, why did it get sent for destruction in the first place if it had never been used? My brother's missing tooth was found on a tip, so they say. Do you know where the seagulls are? Yeah? The tip lorry had gone, collected the stuff from outside the nightclub, gone to the tip, and the police had found that tooth in 5 minutes. I thought they must have taken the tooth fairy with them. Came to the point we've been fighting for years, fighting all these organisations. The IPCC, the best they could come up with, these officers are institutionally racist. No, I'm sorry. They were making monkey and chimpanzee noises. I call that racist. You're racist or you're not. What's institutionally racist? That's a get-out clause to me. So we fought and we fought and we fought. And we actually got to the point where we weren't going to find any justice in this country. So we was banking on the European Courts of Human Rights. At the 10th hour, the government conceded. They wrote a unilateral declaration which had never ever been done in a death in custody before. They were forced because they didn't want to be embarrassed. If the European courts had listened to our case, they would have been able to see a clear cut that this country did everything in their power, spending millions of public money to let those 5 murdering police officers off. Then I thought, this is not justice. But at least it's a little bit of acknowledgement. I thought, now what do I do? Do I get on and try and bring back some of those 14 years, which I'd never ever be able to do? But only to be told on the 5th of November, 2011, that in 2000, when I thought that we'd given my brother the best public funeral, the best respect that a paratrooper could have had that fought for this country, only to find out that I'd buried a 77-year-old woman. My brother was in the mortuary for 12 years and they're trying to tell me that nobody knew about it. And once again, we're waiting for this famous, we will investigate. I heard Alan Johnson say, well, we definitely need an investigation, and if nothing criminal has happened, I'd actually heard the police saying, well, we have to make sure that the punishment is proportionate. you bury the dead to respect them. Christopher was not only just murdered, the only person that ended up in prison was Christopher. The police officers, the murdering police officers are walking the street. My brother's body was in prison for 12 years. And once again, they're going to lie again. They're already saying to us, oh, well, we're looking at questioning these people that misconduct in a public office. I went, wait a minute, I've seen that before. Misconduct in a public office means somebody has done this with malice. It means that you have to prove that they knew what they were doing. Now they're telling me we can't find any evidence when your brother was moved from the hospital mortuary to the funeral. We can't find any evidence because the funeral director's dead and the mortuary staff, one's in New Zealand and one's in Australia. It's more like the investigating officer and his partner are going to go away on holiday there. Now, Christopher is one of over 3,000 people in this country that has died at the hands of the police. There are families all over this country, and these men are dying horrific deaths at the hands of the state. This is state murder. The role in the future is susceptible to this. Their loved ones in the future, are not going to be within the police force, They're going to be in the same position as every one of us, and as susceptible as every one of us. But the thing is, you're using your money, Police cuts, there needs to be 20% of the police cuts. Maybe then we stop spending millions of pounds paying top barristers to defend them when they're murderers. I'm here today to ask for support of everybody. If you hear about a death in custody, support the families, they need you. We'll never ever stop anything like this without the support of everybody. Thank you.
This man won a bronze medal in the 200 metres race in the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City. Alongside his brother, comrade, fellow athlete Tommy Smith, they made a protest that was a lightning rod to the oppression of the United States and around the world. And we shouldn't forget Peter Norman as well. The Australian was good with him. This man is a man we all grew up with, one way or another. And the image, the powerful statement that he made, and the journey he made from there, which we're going to hear about tonight. Just published a book, The John Carlos Story, with Dave Zirin, who's going to speak later on, next to John. But without further ado, I'm going to ask you to give a warm welcome and solidarity to John Carlos.
What I said earlier was I don't think I can go anywhere on planet Earth and receive as much love as I received in this building tonight. Not just for me, for the two young ladies that preceded me as well. Let me just start by saying, you know, I heard you mention about me winning a bronze medal, and I heard a whole round of applause. My life is not about winning medals. My life is about being a freedom fighter. You know, I went to Occupy Wall Street a few months back, and I told those people that I'm there for them. Why am I there for them? Because I am them. You know, when you sit back and you think about a war that we had 44 years ago, we set out to win the war, but the war has not been won yet, and that's why I'm still here. That's why you're here. We must come together as a unified body to fight against the demon that we're fighting against. It's not just here in the UK. It's in the United States. And when you sit back and you think about colonialism, it's spread out throughout the world. When you see death and destruction in terms of the police department, they read the pamphlet. They know people of color, as I say, they can see me 5 blocks away walking in. Then when you see sprinkled along the line, when we see the various ethnic groups in this auditorium tonight, those white individuals in here, they dislike you as much as me. They call you a nigger lover. They say you're traitors to your own people. And it's not about what they try and put the tag on about black and white. See, that's the way they want us to believe, that it's black and white. But it's about right versus wrong. You know? Let me tell you, there was a guy years ago named Nelson Mandela. When Nelson Mandela went to jail, he didn't go to jail for fighting about the fact that black people in Africa were being held back. He fought because it was wrong, because they were human beings. When he came out, he didn't just embrace black people, he embraced all people. He didn't bend like a rope or a rubber band. He stood fast. He stood firm. And he still stands that way today. Dr. Martin Luther King, the same individual they call him the King of Peace. But as well as Dr. King left this world based on his beliefs about justice and freedom and equality for all individuals, they had another guy across the street from him named Malcolm X. Malcolm made a statement saying, by any means necessary. They tried to pit Dr. King against Malcolm X. But in this war that we're in, you have to remember that both of them perished in the same vein. They might have taken their flesh, but they're not taking their will. Their will lives through you right here today. We have a tremendous fight ahead of us. We as a unit must realize that we have to roll like a steamroller. And the only way we're going to roll like a steamroller is we have to be in the position to recruit. We have to go out and find young recruits. Why? Because I can see back in time when I was a young man and I had a vision like an old man. Now I'm an old man. And I'm starting to think, who am I going to pass the baton to? Who's going to pick up the fight? This fight that we have for justice and equality is not something that's going to be won in next year or next 100 years. Because racism, bias, prejudice is weaved into our society throughout life. It's not something that you're going to be able to just cook it out, roll it out. This is something that we have to fight to put out. It's a constant job. Let me tell you about young individuals that went to me years ago when I had this vision with a few other young individuals about a new paradigm, a new vision, to try and make the human race better, make it produce more, to give everyone equal ground to stand on. I remember I went to my fellow athletes And I said to them, I said, guys, we created this program called Olympic Project for Human Rights. We'd like you guys to consider becoming members. But what does this program consist of? Well, we consisted of potentially boycotting the 1968 Olympics. Oh, no, you got to be kidding. Step back from the Olympic Games? Sacrifice my 15 minutes in the sun? I promised my mother I was going to win a medal. My kids say, Daddy, how many medals you bringing home? I owe it to myself for the days I trained to go to the Olympic Games. I said, well, man, your question is 15 minutes in the sun. 15 minutes in the sun out of a lifetime. 15 days after you get your 15 minutes, they wouldn't know your name. Mind you now, this is not to take anything away from any young athlete. I think they're like animals that God put into this earth for them to excel, for the world to see their talents. But we felt that something was far more important at the moment in terms of humanity, to deal with every culture, every ethnicity that walked the face of the earth, to give everyone an equal opportunity. This is my plight. Would you go with me? No, man, I don't know whether I can do that. But would you take some time out of your life and just get on this train with me? Would you get on this train so we can have some dialogue and some discussion? Maybe you can make me understand why this medal is such an important value to you in life. And maybe I can educate you as to what humanity is all about and what we can do to make it better for your kids and your kids' kids. Would you be willing to do that? Yeah, we can do that. Well, we got on the train in America, and we started the train rolling. And as we rolled, was many people along the side of the train, just like the presidential election. They were all out there with their American flags. They were singing, God bless America. Everybody sing the song. They're all happy because their warriors are on the train. It's like going to the war. Yeah, okay, we had this discussion, and through this discussion, we came to a consensus that, hey, you know something, man, I'm more enlightened about this Olympic Project for Human Rights. Maybe I can consider this a lot more than I thought about it one time. You mean we have a consensus? We can possibly pull off a boycott? Yes, I believe we can. Well, let's stop the train. Well, why are we stopping the train? Well, I don't want it to be known just amongst you and I that we have this consensus that possibly we can do a boycott. We need to let the world know. So how do we do that? We put the banners on the side of the train. 1968 potential boycott. All those founding brothers that was there, we felt proud of ourselves. Wow, we finally got these brothers to wake up. And when I say brothers, I'm talking about blacks in particular, but anyone that was sympathetic to their cause. Now we got the train hooked up where everybody see this potential boycott, and we start the train up again, and we rolling down the track, and we run to the window looking out to see where's all our patriots singing God bless America, because we're still their heroes. They weren't there. They gone, they disappeared. People started looking around like, why they not here no more? And in the place of them as we were rolling, became missiles. Shooting at the train, fire bombs shooting at the train. And you know, as I stated earlier, we were young individuals. 44 years went by, now we're old men. When they scorned me, talked about me, put me down, shunned my kids, sent my wife to her grave, everybody walked away from me. 44 years later, my God said it's time to turn things around. He said, now, John, I'm going to make you an icon. I'm going to make you something everyone wants to look up to, everyone wants to touch. I'm going to make you that icon that everybody want to rub up against you and take a picture with you. And all my buddies that was young with me at that time, they come up and they said, John, that's a beautiful statue they built at San Jose State, 26 feet tall, man. I just can't imagine that. But I think I should have a brick at the base of the statue with my name on it. Hey, man, whoa, don't take the picture yet. Let me get in the picture. I heard this high, I heard it low, and I heard it in between. And I thought, and I said, man, you know something? I love you more than yesterday and less than tomorrow. But you can never get in the picture. You can never have a brick with the base of the statue. Why not? We ran track together. We were here together. We was all down together. And this question comes from you when you go out to people when it comes time for you to be at the crossroads of your life and you have to make a decision. And you put it to them to make that same decision. And they said, well, why can't we get in the picture? Why can't we get that brick? I said, you can get it. Step up here. Get a little closer. Open up your shirt for me. Pull up your sleeves. Pull up your pants legs. Let me see your neck. What are you looking for, John? What are you looking for? I'm looking for the burns on your chest or on your leg or your back. Because those that stayed on the train had to take the heat. If you don't have no burns, that means you bailed. I can't change the course of history. I can't make a woman halfway pregnant. When my wife told me she was pregnant, she was all the way pregnant. What no 50 cent? What no half pregnancy? When that chicken laid the egg in the farm town that I grew up in New York, that egg didn't stay on the side, on the fence, it rolled to the right or it rolled to the left. There was no neutrality. Either you committed in this fight 1,000%, or you're not committed at all. To stand up against the British police here in this nation, many people have failed. To say, let's boycott the Olympic Games, many people had failed. To go to the civil rights marches in the South, many people had failed. To walk alongside Malcolm X, many people had failed. You know what I found? I found, and I want you guys to repeat this with me at least a couple of times. I am not, let me hear you say that. Afraid to offend my oppressor. Let me hear you say that again. I am not afraid to offend my oppressor. And that's the problem with the 90% of the people. This is 10% strong. But 90% of the people, they run because they're afraid to offend the person that's oppressing them. For fear you might tell me I don't have a job. For fear you might tell my friends walk away. For fear your kids might get ridiculed. For fear that someone might take a dive and say, I can't live this life no more. But the fight goes on. I have to let my oppressor know, say, man, if I die, I'm going to wait for your ass because it ain't over. You sit back and think about Malcolm X, a Martin Luther King, a Gandhi. Those are three that went down by the shell. A Robert Kennedy, a John F. Kennedy, the shell. They didn't kill Paul Robeson that way. They didn't kill Jack Johnson that way. They didn't kill Harriet Tubman that way. But they tried to kill him by destroying your will, to making you break down and have fear to offend your oppressor. Those individuals that I mentioned, if you think about it, you can name the greatest movie star that they had in England. And when he died, nobody remembered him. Think about the great Duke, John Wayne in America. Nobody remembers John Wayne. But everybody knows who Paul Robeson is. Everybody knows who Martin Luther King is. They even know who Harriet Tubman is. And then when you sit back and think about, here's for the white folks in the audience that said, I believe in the right It ain't about race, it's about right versus wrong. John Brown is an icon. Peter Norman is an icon. These are guys that was on the other side of town that said, hey man, I ain't concerned with you trying to put the trip about white versus black, because it ain't about white versus black. Those police that took these sisters, brothers, and kids, they were wrong. That's all we fight them on, is the fact that they're wrong, and anybody that's trying to cover for them, whether it's the Supreme Court here in England, they're just as wrong. We had an atrocity that took place in America years ago off a young fella by the name of Rodney King. Rodney King might have broke the law, but he didn't kill nobody. But they tried to kill him. And here you sit back and let me tell you about right versus wrong. It was 25 police. 13 of them beat him, kicked him, hit him, clubbed him, did everything they could do to him. 12 of them stood on the side and watched. My question to you is, who was wrong? Every last one of them, those that stood on the side and watched, they would be more guilty than the ones that were doing the clubbing. Only way we're going to change this is through the masses of the people. We know the law. We ain't about trying to break the law. We ain't trying to burn up the city. But you know, when you say burn up the city, I know I had a fire in me from the day I came in this world on June 5th, 1945. I had a fire from day one. And you know what the fire did for me? It made me have motion. It made me start to get busy in terms of not waiting on anyone else to make the changes that need to be made. It's me putting my shoulders in it and driving towards change. A lot of people stood on the side and watched. What is he doing? Oh, crazy Johnny. He's doing some crazy stuff again. Like I'll give you here, for instance, my old man taught me when I was a little kid the theory of 48 hours. I burned some trees down one day in my neighborhood. My mother said to me, Johnny, I don't come downstairs because of the caterpillars. What's the caterpillars? What that have to do with anything, Mama? She said, well, son, you know, I work in the hospital. I'm one of the nurses in the operating room, and caterpillars are so fragile. If they fall on you out the tree, you can't wipe it off because as soon as you touch it, it's going to bust. And by the time you put your hand to your side, you got a rash. I can't go in the operating room with a rash on me. I said, well, Mama, it ain't fair that you stay upstairs and all the other mothers downstairs talking and having a good time. I said, all right, Mama, I know what to do. Based on my father's theory of this 48 hours, I was old enough and wild enough to approach the manager of the project. And I said to him, I said, man, we have a problem. What's your problem? Now, I'm too young in the manager's eyes for me to be there and be concerned about a human issue. We have a problem. What's the problem? Caterpillars. When I said caterpillars, he looked at me, get out of my office, and he pushed the panic button. The police showed up and Project Guard showed up, and they drugged me out. Well, I broke away and I ran back in, and I told the man, I said, you got 48 hours. The police looked at me and said, are you threatening him? No, sir, I'm not threatening him, but it's a money back guarantee. If he don't handle it, I'll be back to take care of it. And I gave him his 2 days. And after 2 days, then I had to get busy. It's just like Mexico City. I gave them their races. After those races, I had to get busy. I went and got some gas at a gas station. My father's friend at a gas station went down and said, hey, Mr. Gardner, my father Pop said to send him some gas. He needs some gas. Well, what's he needed for? I don't know, Mr. Gardner, but he said he needed it right away. But did he send a gas can? No, he didn't send a can. Boy, you can't get your can. Well, I got a big can. Did he send any money? He paid you later. All I had was intent to take care of the problem. When I threw the gas on the tree, I got a wake-up call because the fire jumped up so far it singed my face. But before I could hit the next tree, the fire leaped over. I burned 3 trees, and by the time the police came, they wrestled me to the ground. And now I have to go to court. They took me to jail. My mother said, Earl, I'm not going to the courthouse. I'm not going to let that boy embarrass me. See, a lot of you guys say, man, I don't want to go through the agony of being embarrassed. I don't want to go through the agony of them wrestling me down or locking me up. But when I went to court that day, the first thing the judge looked at my father is people look at you and say, I'm a scholar. Does your son have any mental deficiencies? Is anything wrong with him? My father said, none to my knowledge, Your Honor. Well, Mr. Collins, why would your son do what he did? Wasn't he concerned about the safety of the other people? My father said, well, that's a good question. Why don't we ask him, Your Honor? Judge said, well, Johnny, what do you have to say about safety of the other people? I said, Your Honor, I told the women to stay upstairs or go down the other end of the project. But why would you do what you did? I said, Your Honor, I go to the white neighborhood, they have the same trees. They have the same infestation of caterpillars. But I notice every summer I go there, they spray their trees. They never sprayed my trees since I was a little boy. Well, why did you do it? I did it, Your Honor, because my mother could not come downstairs. I went to the manager shunned me out of his office like I didn't have a right to be here. Like they tell you, you don't have a right to want to step up against the insanity that's taking place by you losing your brothers and your sisters. Like you don't have a right to step up and say, I'm entitled to equality, better housing, fair employment. And right now, when I say fair employment, it's wide open for you to go out and talk to people now because the crunch is on. Those that felt like they were safe, they're starting to lose their jobs. They want you to be second-class citizens in your own nation because the Olympics is coming here. Well, you know who gets the royal seat at the Olympics? The royal family. And you get the royal shove. Well, as I told the manager, the judge, they never sprayed the trees, Your Honor. He looked at my father and said, Mr. Collins, is that true? When the last time they sprayed? And my father said, well, Johnny was a little boy. The judge said to him, he said, well, the manager here, step up here. Let me see your paperwork. The manager said, well, I don't have any paperwork, Your Honor. Judge said, good time for us to take a break. See, it's a good time for you to stop them sometimes. So let's take a break. Y'all ain't ready? I'm going to give you a little time to get ready. Bring your papers back after lunch. We went to lunch. My father told me, he said, son, you might go to jail. They might lock you up in farm school. Like I was worried. You weren't worried, but you know, Dr. King didn't worry when he went to jail. He went to jail for the right reason. That's the way I felt as a little boy. If I go to jail, I'm going for the right reasons. So when we come back from lunch, the judge called the manager back up. He said, yeah, how's the manager? Come up here again. He said, do you have your files? He had one little thin piece of paper. He said to me, he said, is that all you have? The manager said, well, Your Honor, my secretary is sick and I didn't really know where to reconcile. But the judge was a smart judge. See, they might have 99.9% of them not in your corner, but it's 0.1% waiting for you to call on them. You got to find them. Because like I say in the police department, all police ain't bad. All or nothing ain't bad. They got maybe one or two decent police. You got to find him and you got to make him the town cry and say enough is enough. I'm tired of what I've seen happen for the last 10 or 20 years of my career in the police department. They're there. You got to seek them out. So now the manager says, yes, this is all I have. And the judge looked up and said, well, we have someone here from the housing authority. Here come a guy bustling with a big load of papers. He said, could you tell me how often does the manager receive a stipend for spraying the trees? Shuffled through his paper. He said, well, they receive a stipend every year, Your Honor. He said, well, how many years did the project put down that they sprayed the trees? He said, every year, Your Honor. They put down every year they got it. He looked back at my father. He said, Mr. Collins, are you sure they haven't been spraying the trees? My father said, not to my recollection. Now, what happened was they busted the manager because he'd been pocketing the money. So now he gets fired right there in the court. Now I'm starting to look a little better. I wasn't crazy Johnny no more. My daddy didn't tell me, boy, you're going to jail. And the judge told my father, said, you got a great son there. I'm not talking about that. About me being a great son. But here, what I want you to understand right now, what meant so much to me, and I think it should mean just as much to every one of you out here. You know, my father was a good, strong man, a loving man. He'd fight for me, do anything, but he'd get that butt when it was time to. But when we left the courtroom, you know, I expected my father to tell me about how proud he was of me, how happy he was. But you know, at 14 years old, my father looked at me and he told me, he said to me, he said, son, he said, I can't tell you about the pride that's busting loose in me and how happy you made me when I go home and tell your mom about how you conducted yourself. He said, but greater than all of that, I can't begin to tell you how much I respect you. You know what it is for a father to tell his son about respecting him? That means you stood up against everybody when everybody was going down the wrong way. When everybody said, little crazy Johnny, and you stood fast to do what you believed was right, that monitors respect. I'll take half of that. That monitors respect. And that's all you guys are looking for when you fight for the right thing and the right causes, is to make them respect you. You can't get mad because they put a move on you, because it's a game that we're in. And the game is called the game of life. Right. You can't win a game if you don't realize that you're in a game. Right. The object of the game is to win. You can lose because you ain't doing nothing. But you've got to get up to the bat and say, I'm in this game to win. Because the game that you win is not for you. It's just like the sister said. This is my kids. It ain't about me. And your life, the day you was born, is not important. The day that you die is even less important. But what is important is what you did between those 2 days. God bless you and thank you.
Inspiring people, you get a little bit more strength, a little bit more fire, and you can go on and go on. And I think we've been fighting in our struggle for about 4 years. So just from being in this meeting alone, we've got about another 4 years worth of fire from you guys. Maybe 10. In 2008, our beloved brother Sean Rigg was suffering a mental crisis. And instead of being taken to a hospital to receive the care and perhaps the medication that he deserved and that he needed, he was arrested by 4 or 5 police officers, wrestled to the ground, criminalized and restrained, bundled into a police van and driven for about 5 minutes very fast to Brookston police station. And on coming out the other end of the van, could barely walk and was on the ground, and basically was taken into the back of Brookston police station on the floor. Within a very short space of time he was dead. Now, our brother, even though he suffered a mental illness, was a very beautiful man. He was a musician. He struggled for about 20 years with this illness, and he refused to let it beat him. And we were so proud of him, what he was able to achieve. And we looked after him and stood by him and loved him, and he loved us. And we didn't expect, the police who are supposed to protect you and look after you if you're a vulnerable person. I'm not talking about criminals. Sometimes, you know what I mean, they need to be arrested, but they don't need to be tried and murdered on the streets. Okay, there's courts for that. Instead of being taken to hospital, he was left to die at a police officer's feet. I mean, we're waiting for our day in court, which is going to be on the 11th of June, for around 7 weeks at Southwark Coroner's Court. We fought tooth and nail for 4 years just to get the tiniest little bit of disclosure. We've fought the IPCC, we've challenged them, we've put many questions on the table, we've stood outside Brixton Police Station, protesting, holding vigils, speaking to anyone that will listen. We've got a really, really good, strong legal team, and we've really had to fight to get the little few answers that we have got. But we've got a long, long way to go, and we will never, never give up until we find out what happened to our brother. There was no drugs, no alcohol, nothing like that. He didn't smoke, he didn't drink, he smoked in his past, but he wasn't even smoking cigarettes. And, you know, he was healthy. The autopsy said that he was, you know, there's nothing wrong with his heart, there was nothing wrong with his brain in terms of, you know, any form of illness. Only mental illness, which we know doesn't kill anybody. So we've got a lot of questions, and basically we know that the police didn't give him a chance. Why? They didn't care. They seemed to not care one bit, and they didn't give Sean a chance to live. They appeared to be standing around monitoring him while he was dying, in a similar way to Janet's brother. It's devastating having to watch some CCTV footage and just watch your brother die, and nobody's lifting a finger to help. There's a police doctor there. He's completely useless. So, you know, heads are going to roll in the court. We hope, don't we? Anyway, there's not much time. We've been really fighting hard. We've got a campaign, if you like. It's called Strong with Justice and Change Campaign. You can go on our website and have a look. You can support us in any way. You know, you can support us with funds. You can give to the website. We've been asked for £21,000 by this country to contribute to the inquest. When the police get, you know, the best barristers in town, and we all pay for it, basically. And they've asked us for £21,000. I have no idea where that money is coming from. It's ridiculous. So we're fighting, and we're demanding the state to do a lot of things. Basically, we've joined the United Families and Friends campaign, which is a coalition of families, many of you guys have marched with us. The UFFC march every year in a remembrance annual march, okay? And we marched down Whitehall, and it's the last Saturday in October. Go on the website, ufcccampaignCentral.net, keep an eye out. We've also got an e-petition that we're trying to force this government to have a public inquiry into deaths in custody. I'm going to finish soon, but I've got a list. Janet said, rightly so, you can't see it because the names are so small, but every single one of those names are very, very significant. There's somebody's brother, father, son, cousin, sister, you know, child, and they're very loved and they're very missed. And there's over 2,500 names on this list. And some of these people don't get the kind of support that we have, because some of them they just don't have the fight. It's too hard. It's really, really hard. But basically, come and march with us the last Saturday of October, UFFC. We need a mass campaign. There's a lot happening in this day. I think there's a lot of campaigns uniting. You know, you've got the Defend the Right to Protest campaign. I think they're here today. You've got Alfie Meadows, who is a living witness to police brutality. He survived. My brother didn't. Brian Douglas was banged over the head in a similar way. Brian Douglas was banged over the head, just like Alfie Meadows. Alfie Meadows is alive to tell the tale of police brutality, and yet the police are trying to take him to court and do him for public disorder. When he was fighting for his life, he had to have emergency brain surgery. So, you know, we kind of all together, Mark Duggan, Smiley Culture, Ricky Bishop, Stanley Murphy, Powell, Jason McPherson, Azelle Rodley, call out the names. There's too many to name. We're fighting not just for Sean, we're fighting for everybody. we need a mass campaign and there will be no peace until there is justice.
In every generation, there are a group of people, however small, who will always stand up and sacrifice their time, their money, their reputation, their lives for the sake of justice and for the sake of creating a better world. It is an honour for me to stand on the same stage with people like Doreen, like Janet and like John, because of the sacrifices being made, we are living in a far better world than we could be otherwise. It is from their stories and their struggles that we, the Bob Rahman campaign, and specifically his family, gain the strength to carry on. When we see Doreen's 18 years of non-stop struggle for her son, for justice, and to bring the perpetrators to account, we gain strength from those. So thank you, Doreen, thank you, Janet, thank you, John, and thank you all of those who have struggled in this way. It's sad that the athletes who are going to be coming to London 2012 may not have the spine that was seen in Mexico in 1968. Because it is, well, maybe a coincidence, maybe not, but a number of British citizens, including Babar Ahmed and Talha Ahsan, both now in prison for over 14 years collectively without trial, may be extradited to the United States at the outset of the London Olympics. It is a moment of shame on this country that it will extradite its own citizens to a foreign jurisdiction for crimes they said were committed in this country. For those of you who are not familiar with Babar Ahmed's case, I will quickly summarize because time is short. But 8 years ago, he was the victim of a brutal police assault which left him with over 73 injuries. While he was being strangled in the police van, PC Mark Jones said to him, "You will remember this day for the rest of your fucking life." Babar Ahmed remembered that day, and it is Mark Jones who was not allowed to forget that day. Because someone like Babar Ahmed was the wrong person to pick on. He was the terror suspect they wished they had killed. Because they let him live, he has made their lives a living hell. For 8 years, Babar and his family have struggled against the until finally in 2009, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner himself admitted, finally, in the High Court that his men had carried out the assault as Babar had claimed they did. But that was not the end. On the back of that, we still had to fight a further 2 years before those police officers were brought to trial. And only in a country as great as Great Britain could those 4 officers, after a 5-week trial with audio evidence, with video evidence, with witness evidence, could they be found not guilty by a jury within less than an hour. Moreover, 2 of the jurors asked the judge for permission to shake the officer's hands afterwards. And as the BBC reported, they did in fact shake their hands after the trial had finished. Moreover, if that's not bad enough, throughout this time, Babar Ahmed has been in prison without trial, the longest detained without trial British citizen in the history of Britain, waiting to be extradited to America for running a website from the UK. It's not just about Babar though, this is the thing we must realise. This thing which started about this is just for the Muslims. Once these powers come into play, they affect each and every one of us. We already have the case of Gary McKinnon, who we are all aware of. But more recently, a young student from Sheffield, Richard O'Dwyer, who is operating a file-sharing website, transferring, directing people to websites where they could download music, is facing extradition to the United States. File-sharing and this copyright offence is not a criminal offence in this country. What next? Will they start extraditing people who drink alcohol to Saudi Arabia? Now, the whole point of this extradition treaty that this country has with the United States is that a person does not get to be tried in this country. All it takes is for the United States to say, we want them here. You do not get the opportunity to even see or challenge the evidence of a British court, unlike an American citizen who would have that opportunity before being extradited to the UK. The extradition treaty must stop. Now, how do we end this? How do we move forward? Because I know my time is short and notice is coming my way. There's an old Chinese proverb that says that if every single person was to carry one pebble, the people could move mountains. Everybody in this room must know somebody, an MP, somebody in the Home Office, somebody in the CPS. This issue must make noise. Malcolm X said that it is a hinge that squeaks that gets the grease. As Doreen has shown us, squeaking doesn't get you anywhere. You've got to make a lot of noise, a lot of roaring, and that's what we need to do for the next 2 months. If Barber is extradited and Talha is extradited to the United States, they face the prospect of life imprisonment in solitary confinement in a supermax prison the UN has condemned as amounting to torture. We cannot let this happen. I'll leave you with a message from Barber, which he said yesterday he was listening to the news. We heard John speaking about whether he would do the salute again and do what he did again, now knowing the suffering he went through afterwards. And I think John said something to the effect that even after all the suffering, if I was to look back, I would do it again 1,000 times over. And Barbara said, when you speak tonight, I want you to say this message really for the Metropolitan Police. And he wants us to hear this loud and clear, that because he stood up to the police brutality and exposed what they were doing to him, because of that he has spent the last 8 years in prison without trial. And the message is loud and clear that if this was to happen again, he would do it 1,000 times over.
I want to start by saying, I want to thank the people that are on this platform. I want to thank John. That poster of him doing the Black Power thing was on my wall. And I used to look at it all the time. And it gave me a sense that you should always struggle and fight and never accept, as he said, what the oppressor said. I want to thank Doreen for 19 years standing out against the Metropolitan Police. And I remember when the police said she was an ordinary woman. I remember when they said it. But I tell you what they didn't realise is that ordinary people could organise collectively and fight back against them. The Metropolitan Police are corrupt. They say they don't know why they're corrupt. There's a link between a drug dealer and senior police officers, and that's part of the reason what went on, and that's why we want to have an inquiry. And that's why we want it to be taken, as Doreen said, into every trade union, into every workplace, and into every community. And those are the police aren't fair. Because when there's been 89 demonstrations against the EDL, and I tell you how they treat us. According to the Home Office, the EDL is a human rights organisation. So you can call for killing and burning down Muslims. When they meet the UAF, they say, you're a left-wing troublemaker, people who are bringing problems to our streets, but why don't you stay at home? They don't send that same message to the EDL. They spend millions of pounds telling people to stay at home, and the other people that don't say to stay at home are the racists. I want to say this, we defeated the BNP. Partly. They don't know, but we partly defeated them. We made Big Griffin cry. And proving to them that black and white unity and in struggle you can break them. We broke the National Front in the 1970s with Yankee Oxley and Rock Against Racism. We broke them. And I tell you, we did it not from, it wasn't people like David Cameron who says that multiculturalism doesn't work. What does he know about multiculturalism? He comes from Eton, he's a millionaire, he doesn't know about our lives and how people live. I think in 1968 they talked about affluent society. Today we talk about a crunk society. They say we're all in it together. We're clearly not all in it together when they cut taxes for themselves and give themselves millions of pounds. I think racism has come out of capitalism. Racism is embedded into the system. The police are not neutral. They play a role in our society. Today we've heard about the Queen's peace. That's what he says when we join the police officer. Your job is to protect the Queen's peace. The Queen has got a very big piece. She's not there. And that's what they're there to protect are rich. When I was a kid, punks and reggae people came together and we celebrated punky reggae, and we used to have a radical stuff, the Jubilee. Yeah. And I still believe in that today. You've quickly seen the question of the Leveson inquiry, and they said, you know, the truth is, when you see a horse coming towards you, how did we get that horse? Most of the time we see horses being ridden over us when we're in demonstrations. There was a link between the police and the media. When Spider Culture was killed, they immediately started to rubbish him. There's a link between these people. The people at the top of our society use it to protect themselves. But I think we've got something else to say. I saw the riots in Tottenham, and I've seen the riots, uprisings. Struggle against injustice. They're saying that they don't know where it comes from. David Starkey said it's got something to do with black culture or anything like that. Why are people rioting in Greece? Every time we started talking patois in Greece. We have an unequal society. In 68 it was less unequal. Today it's even more unequal. So my point is, the people on this platform are our leaders in terms of telling us that we can struggle. They are our leaders in terms of that. What John Carter said, we have to win. And that's the reason why I want to ask you to go on the TUC demonstration, which I've now forgotten when it is. I want to ask you to go on the TUC demonstration to struggle, because I think when black and white people come together, I really will end up on this, right? The EDL were beaten in East London because Muslims, black and white, all came together. They were beaten on the streets because trade unions came together. But I tell you what else they were beaten by. They were beaten when the RMT shut down the stations. Yes.
And the RMT, we will have Don and Doreen and Janet and everyone else here today, and yourselves. So please, thanks to
thank you for that introduction. I'd like to say three things. Firstly, how did this meeting come about? Why this meeting? And most importantly, where next? Firstly, not me. Sat over there on the right-hand side is the branch secretary of our engineers branch, Paul Jackson, last December, having heard about Janet's case and absolutely appalled, gets Janet down to the engineers branch. A bunch of white, hairy-arsed engineers. They listen to Janet, stunned into silence. Absolutely stunned into silence. And we go from that meeting to what we have here tonight. And let's be honest, a few weeks ago, we were thinking about an RMT event. If it wasn't for people like Matt, who so enthusiastically threw his hat in the ring, says no, this is to be bigger. And indeed, what we've ended up with is a trade union movement meeting. And that's what it needs. Why this meeting, why now? We're doing it through the lens of the Olympics. See, whilst they're faffing about around the country with their torch, the 70-day relay, they forget that was an invention of the Nazis. That was invented in 1936 by Hitler and Goebbels. That is an invention of the Nazis. What we've done here tonight, what we'll be doing the next 2 weeks, is with John, is with Doreen, is with Janet. We have our own torch. It's the torch of solidarity, the torch of social justice, the torch of resistance. And that's the message we need to now put forward and rally around between now the Olympics and beyond. And that means what next? See, I think there's two aspects to this. We cannot keep on going back to court and coming back disappointed, fighting, but coming back disappointed, they got away with it again and again and again. One of them, i.e. racist, corrupt police scum, one of them has to go down. One of them has to go down. That will shift qualitatively the position in this country. When they see one of those behind bars, they will realise there's a movement going here, and it's a movement that's not going to stop. See, John's absolutely right. You cannot be neutral on a moving train. You get on and you've got to push forward. And as the chair introduced this meeting with Frederick Douglass, actually that's something very important Frederick Douglass said. Power concedes nothing without a demand. Our demand tonight, as a trade unionist, as moved by Doreen, as seconded by Janet, as thirded, if that's a word, by John, we demand a public inquiry into police corruption. That is our demand. It's what you take back from here to your union branch, to your union leader, to your national executive. We have to move forward. And to end with the quotes, actually, there's an alternative leaflet to that one. Let's end with the famous quote from Paul Robeson. If we link a black fist with a white fist, together we can form a hammer and we can smash the police and their rotten politicians behind them.